I bet you can tell what the title of this webisode is. It's all about the new hot off the press Foggy Forest Collection. Teresa's been having a wonderful time. I have 5 projects and many new techniques to share with you, so please come play with us. We'll just go over the things that Teresa has used, and we'll start with the Foggy Forest 12 by 12 pattern cardstock, and I'll show you all the things that she's used. And as always with hot off the press, you're going to get some ideas on the back side of the insert. Then to coordinate with that, we of course have the Foggy Forest cardstock. You're going to get 2 of each of 6 colors. This is also 12 by 12. And then we take that same design and do it in a 6 by 6 version, as well as 31 die cuts. We also have chipboard. Wait till you see what she did with this. And 2 cutting dies, this wonderful stag, as well as 10 cutting dies right here, so you can make your own Foggy Forest. But first, before we get into Teresa's, I just want to share this scrapbook page. Love to do that. Want to make sure that our scrapbookers are not feeling left out. And as you can see, overlapping the photos using the solid cardstock. In fact, when Debbie created this, she also went into the cutting dies to add a little soft dimension to her page. You can see the cutouts that are here and also right there. So it just creates a wonderful scene, perfect for masculine pages, family outings, anyone who loves the great outdoors. Okay, and speaking of that, let's get to see what Teresa has done. We'll get in closer so that you can see. And this is using our regular 5 by 6.5 inch card. And so that's the base. And I have to tell you, I love what Teresa's done. So you can kind of see the shadow. And when I open this, that's going to open. And then this is going to pull out. And look at that. You have just a beautiful scene. And we see our deer and a moose in many places. Okay, so this is, as you can imagine, using our 6 by 6 papers. And let me show you the first sheet. It's this one. It's the moose sheet. In fact, that's how Teresa refers to them in her directions, because there is a stag sheet and a bear sheet and a deer sheet. This is the moose sheet. So she has, as I said, it's the 5 by 6.5 inch card. So she has taken this and she has trimmed it to fit on the front of the card and just did that. Now she did glue that down. Then she took the 12 circle and scalloped cutting dies, and she used the one that is 3 1/4 inches to put that on the front of her blank card. Actually, in front of her paper covered card. So pretend the paper's there. And then she ran this through the die cutting machine. Now you can do that like this if you have a Big Shot or Gemini Junior. You can also put your cutting die here and wrap this around your platform and run it through that way. Or if you have a bigger machine, you can run it through the 6.5 inch size. So whatever machine you have, this technique will work. So the piece that's here we're also going to use. So again, this has been covered with paper, and then you are going to die cut it. So let me get this out of the way. And then what Teresa did is she added some platinum border dazzles. So it looks like this, and you can see it's not a real high shine, but it is a kind of a matted silver. And she's done this at the top and the bottom on her card front. Now, when we go to the inside of the card, we're first going to make a mechanism to show this piece that she has. Very simple to do. So she has taken the out of the solid cardstock, this kind of a blue-gray color, and she has cut a pattern, cut this piece, so it's 9 3/4 by 6 1/4. Then she scored it in the middle and folded it in half like that, and then scored that in the middle and folded it back. Now this is making a Z fold. There you go. So this piece is going to go on the inside of her card like so. Now she used one piece to cover the left-hand side, and this is the stag paper. And as you can see, it's going to get trimmed down a bit, but that piece that you just cut and scored is going to be the mat around these papers. So the stag is going there. Now, the bear piece, okay, here's the bear one. This is going to go on these two panels. You can see this area. So in the gallery down below, you can see the photograph of the card. Teresa will give you the size. So you cut that piece and then you cut it in half and then simply glue the two pieces on each, glue one piece on each panel. So that just makes that easy. Okay, now we also have in this card some cutouts. So let me go back to the front to just show you. Well, let's see. I think we'll just stay right here. So you've got that piece that was cut out. Then we're going to go back to the circle cutting die, and we're going to take the larger circle and simply cut that out again to make this piece. And that is going to be the mat for the circle that came out of the front. And then this comes out of the die cuts. So here is that deer just perfectly positioned right there. Now those are going to get glued only to the right-hand side of this insert. Okay, now let me show you more. As we go in here, we have another die cut, and it is right here. There you go. So as you can see, with the cutouts, with the die cuts, some have greetings and they're all ready for you. Others have areas where you can do something else. In this case, Teresa just popped this out. It's already matted for you. And then she put one of the cutouts on it. And again, this is the 6x6. So happy holidays. She could have chosen happy birthday, thank you, for you, any of those. Now, when we talked about on the front of using those Dazzles, they also have some little extra pieces, and so she has used those also in this. And speaking of Dazzles, you can see the Noel. In fact, let me close the card so you can really see how nicely that is framed. Now remember, that was the die cut. And this comes out of our Christmas greetings. Now, this Christmas greetings has 10 sheets, and they have the greetings. I'm trying to get this package open. You can hear the rustling. They're in script, but they're also in what we call tiny words and phrases. So that Noel, and you get them in black, white, gold, and silver. Oh, also in red and green. I forgot about that. So scratch the white and go to red and green. So we've got it all ready for Christmas. And so the Noel is there. And this is actually the sheet that has those extra little stars, snowflakes, little swirls, little ornaments, so little extra pieces. So you can see the stars that she did here. And then when I open this up, you can see the snowflakes. So it just creates just a really nice scene and just beautifully uses those papers, and would be wonderful for the recipient. Okay, now we're going to go into our next card, and this is going to use one of the cutting dies. In fact, you can see it's this one, but it's also going to use another cutting die. So what Teresa has pulled is our center step card cutting die, and this is such a popular style. We have these in already done die cut cards, but the reason why she wanted to use the cutting die is I will show you as we open up this card. So we'll set the stag aside for a moment. We'll come back to it. So as this opens, you can see all of the artwork on the inside. Now what Teresa did is she took the paper that has the moose. You're going to see that later in the 6x6. I guess we just did, didn't we? And she's going to position this so that it is over on this side of the sheet. Now what happens is we're going to see that little fox on the back of the card. Yes, it's going to be upside down, but nonetheless it will be there. So this is how we're going to position it on the right-hand side of the moose paper, and go ahead and just cut it out. All the score lines will be there, and you simply use a bone folder just to really get a nice crisp fold on those. And then she has used the ink pad, and I believe it is the, I think it's Seal Brown. And so she just did the edge of all of those areas on her card just to give it a little bit of dimension. Now you can use the blender brushes, you can use dabbers, whatever you like, but you can see she's gone in a little bit onto the papers, and that just does a nice job. Now she also, before she got into the deer, there is a piece of cardstock that is right there, and this is the dark blue that is in the solid cardstock. So there's a piece here. And then she wrapped the jute twine around it. You can see twice. And then she knotted it. And then she tied a little bow and zotted that on top. That got placed, that was attached on the front. Then she went into the deer. Actually, there is one other thing that she did before we move into the deer, and it is Dazzles. So you can see the design that's here. Well, our Fancy Border Dazzles is just a really good seller, and so we have brought them out in the pearl colors and the pastel colors. So this package has 20 sheets in it, and you can tell that she used the green. So just to fan this out, you can just see there's a lot of colors. And these Fancy Border Dazzles, there's 2 different styles here, and they just provide a wealth of borders for you. In fact, I think there's over 100 of them. So anyway, you can take a look at that. But this is what she has done here, is she has placed a strip on the outside and then another strip toward the inside on these side panels. Okay, now we're ready to get into that deer or that stag. Let me show it to you. It's a 3.5 by 5 inch, so it's doing a nice job on the center step card, on our regular size cards. It would fill up beautifully onto a slimline card, so that's nice. You do need several shades of brown, so you can see a medium brown, a dark brown, kind of a tan. And so what Teresa has gone to is this pack of browns, and so there's just a lot in here. You may already have browns, but just in case you need it, that's what she's done. And what she did is she die cut that deer multiple times out of all of those 3 colors. So she chose the dark brown for the solid all over that she used, and then she cut a medium brown and then just trimmed the antlers off, glued that in place, and then did a light brown of the whole thing and then cut the deer off, and then did another one just to get that little nose and just glued it in place. Now the eyes are going to look dark just like this because she's got that dark cardstock as her base. So it's a paper piecing, but it's a pretty simple paper piecing, and look at the look that you have. It's just really, really nice. Now this Happy Holidays, that came from the 12 by 12 cutout sheet, and just like all the sheets, you get 2 of each. So that is what she has foam taped here. On the inside, well, it's already decorated because you have the the back side of the paper, and this is right here. It's another of the cutouts, as you can see. This is 2 more of the Fancy Border Dazzles down here. So just adding a bit of a frosty look in that silver color and a little bit of a green look on the front of it. So just really nice. And those of you who are looking for masculine things, I think this will just suit you well. Now I have another card and a new technique, and here it is. In fact, let me get that card out of the way. Okay, look at that. What a frosty delight this is. Wow. Okay, let me show you. Now this is chipboard. In fact, we'll be doing some chipboard in the next 2 projects also. But look at that beautifulness. Okay, let me show you what she's done, because there are several techniques here, and I'm going to be doing a step-by-step for you. So to begin with, she is taking the sheet that has the jar and the deer, and she has cut out the upper right-hand corner. And this is what I've done. So this is 4.5 by 6. Again, this is going to go on our regular 5 by 6.5 inch cards, but I really want to share this technique with you. So she has cut this out. So I just wanted to let you see where that comes from. Okay. So then you also have lots of things left, and that's one of the very nice things about this. Now I do need to bring in a craft sheet, craft mat, and we're going to just use some stencil tape just to get that nice and solid so we don't have that moving around. And we're going to take the All Over Swirls stencil. This is, I think, our very most popular stencil. Now, as she did on the card, you can see that it's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. So I'm going to place this just like Teresa did, kind of at an angle here, so that I'm also going to get my fluffy stuff going over the mountains and just touching the top of the trees. Now we'll tape this down. So you can see it's a pretty small area, but it certainly has a big impact, doesn't it? Let me scoot this down so you can see. So just getting everything nice and secure. Now, the product that I'm going to use, or the first product, is the Fluffed Paste. And this is something new from Pink Ink, which is from Creative Expressions. And this is a paste, and so I'm going to need my palette knife to kind of scoop this out. Now, something that Teresa mentioned is that you'll want to kind of have it thicker. Oh, goodness. Don't move on me. Okay. You want to have it thicker here, or even with the stencil, but kind of feather it as it goes out. The other thing she mentions is you do want to clean your stencil off pretty quickly because you don't want this to dry on it. So I'm just scooping out a bit. In fact, this might even be too much. And I'm going to place it, and then I'm going to just spread it. And you just spread it to be equal with the stencil. It is really light. It's almost, you can't even feel a weight to it. So as you can see, it's heavier there, but it's going to get lighter as I go toward the edge. And I want to make sure I'm not getting onto the paper because we don't need that. And it can be not as pronounced there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set this down, and you can see you really use so little, so that's fun. Now, I want to get the stencil up, so I'm going to lift it. So, and then I'm going to put a, actually I'm going to put a coffee filter under here, so that when I dump the diamond dust on top, it will have a place to go. So flatten this out, put that right there, and carefully, or not so carefully, dump this on. Now I want that coffee filter so that I have a place to pour this back in. Now I'm going to press that down a little bit, dump this off. You are going to instantly see how that shine is. Now I need my hot gun, my heat gun, to heat this, and I will be right back with that. There we go. Now, I will have asked Houston to fast forward that, but you can see just how that puffs up, true to its name, and the diamond dust is held in place, and it just adds a beautiful focal over there on the right-hand side. Now, with all of my diamond dust in here, I will return it to the package because it just goes a long, long way. Now, for right now, I'm going to set that aside and come back and talk about the card again. Now, on the front of the card, this piece that we just finished is going to be matted onto that dark blue. It's kind of a gray blue, and that just sets the scene for what the chipboard is saying, which is Winter Wonderland. Now let me show you the chipboard. And I just think that that is such a nice font, and it does a really nice job. Now, the fluffy, the Fluff-It paste is really going to be too big and it's going to puff up, so you would miss out on the words. But Teresa really wanted that same frosty look, so she used something else. So the first thing she did was to use the Versamark ink pad, any watercolor ink pad, watermark ink pad, and simply tap that all over and make sure that it's very securely covered. And then she used a different product. It's called Sparkle Puff. And this is an embossing powder from Stampendous. Sprinkled that on, tapped it off just like I did the diamond dust, and then heat set that. So you can see that that gives still a frosty look, and it's got sparkles in there too, just like the diamond dust does, but it adds that same beautiful look, and that works really nicely. Now, on the inside of her card, Teresa took another area of the paper, and let's see, it was on the back side of it, I believe. Yes. So she took this and used that to be on the inside of her card, same matting that she did on the front. But then she also went into the cutouts, and you can see. So this cutout right here is going to go here. And again, she's using one of these to foam tape up, and because they're already self-matted, that's a step you don't have to do. Now for this long piece, she has simply cut it in half, glued one at the top and the other at the bottom, and that takes care of it. So you've got that wow on the front, but it's so easy to do, and both products are going to go a long way. Just be sure to clean off any of the tools that you use, the stencil, the palette knife. You don't want the product to dry on it. So really pretty. And the inside. Okay, I have two more, and let me show them to you. And we've got some different techniques. So here is one, and isn't that interesting? Now, one thing you can see is that she has used the other cutting die, and here it is. And that die is got all these pieces. So it's got the deer, it's got the bear, squirrel, rabbit, wolf, trees, and the jar, which I think is very, very useful. You'll find lots of things to do with that. There are some ideas on the packaging, and but then Teresa has done something more. So let's get into this now. This is also using a 6x6 paper, and it is the one with the jar. And Teresa has us do a couple of different things with this. So I'm rolling up my sleeves to do this. And the first step is to crumple this. And I know that really sometimes hurts, but it's in the instructions, so we need to do it, and we want to trust Teresa. So a little bit trickier with cardstock. So we want to get a lot of bumps and ridges in our crumpling. So you just kind of keep crumpling, as I'm doing here. And it almost softens a little bit. I wondered, and I forgot to ask her, if you wanted to mist the paper first, if that would make the crumpling a little bit easier. So I think we'll see. I tore that, but you know, it's just fine. It's not going to be a problem. So you can see the crumples, and I'm just really, if you've had a tough day, you know, do this. This will get all that energy out. Okay, now I'm going to flatten it out. Yes, I know there's still crumples. And then I'm not going to use this side. I'm going to turn it over and just want to get as many crumple as I can. And you'll see why in just a minute, because you can see the technique that she did, or the end look that she did. It's quite lovely. Okay, now we are going to go into the ink pads, and let me pull out what she used. So we have Pine Tree, let's see, and we have Friar Brown, we have Midnight, and we have Seal Brown. So these are all dye-based, meaning that they're water-based, and these are going to go onto our crumples. So I think I'm going to, let's see, I was going to bring in my craft mat, but I still have all the other goodies on it. So let me do a piece of it. Okay, so I'm getting this down, and then I want to take the ink pads and just brush them over the crumples. Okay, the more crumples, the better. Then I'm going to do each one. So that's Pine Tree. Here is Seal Brown, which is a good solid brown. Okay, and you can be, you know, you can be tough with this. You don't have to be gentle. Let's see, we'll do the Midnight. And this is why we wanted to have as many crumples as possible. So we're really creating just this kind of wonderful collage. And what have I not used? Friar Brown. This is a warmer brown. You can kind of see by the brown there compared to the Seal Brown. Okay, now we'll get this in. So you can see with every layer, we're adding obviously color. Now, this is going to end up going on the front of our card. Get this out of the way. Let me show you. Okay, this is what Teresa's done. This is what I've done. So they're both right. It looks like she got far more crumples than I did, so I need to work on that. But that becomes the front of her card. And again, this is our 6.5 by 5 card, allowing the card itself to be a matte. But she's also taken this piece and trimmed it down to the size that's in the directions, and then matted it on this deep blue. And let me show you what that looks like in the whole piece. Okay, so you can see this is a really lovely blue. So that is what she used. Then she also did a double matte. So this light brown and the light blue, same thing, they're out of the same solid cardstock. And then she wrapped ribbon around it. The ribbon comes out of, as you can imagine, the brown ribbon set. And so that worked nicely. Then glued that on top of her crumpled piece. And then she went into the die cuts. So the especially for you is right here. There is a hole there in that tag. You can elect to cover it up or use it. Teresa foam taped this to the front of her card, and she simply did a knotted bow on top. So that did a nice job. Now, this little piece, we are using the 6 by 6 paper, but this greetings of the season, that gets placed right here. It is matted. It has a matte, but she wanted a wider matte. So she used the same blue that she used on the card. Now, these green leaves, or green trees, as I said, came out of the Foggy Forest cutting dies. And you've got 3 trees, and Teresa did a really nice job of using all 3. She did ink the edge of those with that Pine Tree ink pad. That way it just deepens the green and it gives it a little more dimension. Okay, let's go on the inside of our card. On the inside, there's more of that crumple. So on that front, we did trim off a piece of it. So you want to save it to use it on the inside. Then for the inside of her card, she has used another of the Foggy Forest papers. In fact, yes, so you can see that, and they all have that wonderful scenery. A very Merry Christmas to you. That comes from the die cut, and let me show that to you. Here it is, right on top. Now the piece that's underneath, let me just show you where that came from. It's on the back side of the wolf sheet, so it gives you that Foggy Forest look. So that works nicely. Again, more pieces of the cardstock that were used on the front, and more trees tucked under that foam taped die cut and glued on top. So they kind of just extend that scene. Okay, now we haven't used the chipboard, but the woman is going to do that next. And let me show you the card that we're going to start with. Here it is. Oh, so pretty. Now, this too has a frosted feel along the edges. And it's going back, well, let's see, let me start with the paper, okay? So we're going to start with this sheet. This is out of the 12 by 12. And let me bring it in here. And this is, oops, let me get it for you. Okay, so this is going to come out of the 12 by 12. And this is the mousse sheet. However, Teresa is using this area. You can see those dark trees right here, right under the bird, but right, so it's taking this section below the bird and above the mousse. Got that? Over on the left-hand side of the page. So you can see that that's the area that she has used. Now, if you want to do a fast card, you can just take this and do a cutout, and you are good to go. But Teresa's electing to get our chipboard in here, and I appreciate that. So first, this piece was cut out. And remember the Sparkle Puff embossing powder? Well, that is what she used along the edges. So it's the same technique as before. Do any of the watermark ink pads, brush it around the edge of that piece. Don't attach it first, but just cut it out. And so have this around the edge, and then we're going to use the Sparkle Puff on top. However, look right down here. Can you see those lines? Well, those were made with our friend, the Cosmic Shimmer Specialist Glue. So when she put the Versamark on, she also did a squiggles of the glue. Then she took the Sparkle Puff, sprinkled it all over her card, tapped it off, and hit it with the heat gun. And then you're going to get that sparkle and that texture along those lines as well as around the edge of the card, okay? Now, jute is really something that she has used quite a bit. And in that package, you've got a lot of different colors, as you can see. You get 72 inches of each one. So she's wrapped this around twice, knotted it, and then did a bow out of the jute and zotted that in place. Now, let's get to the chipboard. So the chipboard, as I showed you a minute ago, it's the same chipboard. And what she has done is to use the ink pads to go directly onto the chipboard. Now, I'm going to do the mousse because that's what Teresa did right here. So you want to pull it out first and then do the inking, okay? So let me bring my heavily used craft mat today. I'm going to bring it over here. And I know you're seeing brown on brown, but bear with me. So just simply tap it on. And this is using the seal brown because it is the darker. And just really saturate that. Now you want to let it dry, so that's why I already had mine done. Then you're going to go and take one of our spritzers, misters, and squirt it onto the mat. There you go. Now the areas that are smaller, which with this is most of them, okay, then we're going to just press this in and get some water on it. What that water is going to do is pretty neat. It starts moving the water, the ink around. So let me grab something that's white so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so that's moving around a bit. Now, I would take a tissue or something else. You can dab that. You can also go back into the water if you want to do that. And that's all Teresa did, was simply ink them and then go back into it with putting it into the water. And it just does some fun things. Now mine looks a little more dotted than hers, but that's a fun look too. In fact, you can see it almost looks like a fawn back here with the dots. Now mine's a bit darker, so I used the seal brown. It might have been the Friar brown. For the bird, in fact, this is all in the directions, but she did this same process with all of the pieces. So let me show them to you. Let me get this out of the way. So the bird she did with Bordeaux, and I'll just bring that here so you can see. So that little bird. Now, you can use either side of the chipboard. So she has just turned that over. Now, when you do the chipboard, you'll notice that they get a little bit scorched on the back side, but you know, you're covering it, so it makes no difference. Now, so that's Bordeaux. That moon, oh, wait, I have to, I'll take you inside and show you the other pieces. So let's do that next. And here is the inside of her card. It's almost like that forest comes to life. First, it's this frosty look. You see some things traveling, and then you open it up and it just pops, literally pops. So she has given us a download, and let me show you what that looks like. I'm gonna have to turn it sideways so you can see the whole thing. It is covering the entire 8.5 by 11 piece of paper when you trim it, when you print it out. And then you can place this onto your paper, trace it if you want to, or just kind of tack it on top and cut it out. I have this one that Teresa made for me, and she has written on there valley, mountain to indicate the folds. So as you probably know, a valley fold goes down like a valley, and a mountain fold goes up like a mountain. So this is how it's going to be done. It's going to be a mixture of mountain and valley folds. And then what's going to happen is that you will be able to close this upon itself. And that just does a good job. Now, you'll see that I've got extra sticky tape on the edges of this side as well as this side, because that's going to attach it to the inside of our card. So let me bring the card back so that you can see this. And the way that you'll attach that is to take the tape off of one side and simply position that inside your card like so. And you can press it down if you want. I like to just close my card on top of it because that will fold it down. Then while that's in place, you can take this tape off, close the card again, and it will secure it in perfect position. So that will work quite nicely. So this is a nice mechanism that I think you'll want to use. With all of the patterns that Teresa does, let me just make sure that I'm clear about this. The things that are dotted or dashed lines, those are going to be score lines. The things that are solid lines, those are going to be cut lines. So you will need to take your ruler and your retractable penknife and cut along that line and cut along this line. Then you can score on the other lines and trim out the entire piece with scissors. So that will work nicely. Okay, so we have that mechanism. We have cut it out. I didn't tell you. We want to cut that out of the paper, and it is this paper, the stag paper, and it's going to be this top area. So let me show that to you with the card in place. Okay, so you see how that becomes this long piece that's going to be in here, and it provides the mountain, the birds, everything, the trees that you need to make that landscape. But that's not the end of it. The rest of it is the chipboard. So the moon, as I said, is going to be with the honey pot ink. The rabbit is going to be with the friar brown, which is a lighter kind of a russet brown, right down there. The stag is going to be with seal, which is what we did the moose. And the trees, of course, are going to be with the pine tree. So any water-based ink pads that you have will do the trick because they'll react with the water. But notice what she did on the trees. So she has gone back to using the sparkle puff just on the edges. So she inked those with the watermark ink pad and then sprinkled the sparkle puff and heat them with the heat gun to melt the embossing powder and place them here. So they just interact so nicely. Now, the Celebrate is part of the die cuts. So that's going to get glued up there, and this is just going to close like so. So you have a happy birthday or whatever holiday or season or thank you or whatever you want to say, and then as you open it, you have that stunning piece. So anytime you have a paper that's going to tell your story for you, this is a great process to use. Okay, she's done a wonderful job. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments. We'd love to read your comments. So just once again, we have the 12 by 12 Foggy Forest. We have the coordinating cardstock, that's solid cardstock. We have the die cuts. We have the 6 by 6. We have chipboard, and we have those 2 cutting dies just to make a wonderful Foggy Forest collection. So again, if masculine cards or family cards or outdoor cards are things that will work for you, this is the collection for you. Happy to share it with you and to have Teresa's talent to share also. Thank you for watching. The Money Saver is on the right hand of your screen, exactly where it belongs. All those projects and the download are underneath us, under each of the card ideas. And by the way, that download is going to be after the supply list. You'll see download, and you can just click on it and print it off, and it's yours forever. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being, as always, the best part of paperwishes.com. We'll see you next time.